can be perfect. It is way. I'll even go as far as to say it's way better. 91. The double Bomat draws continue. And they're not actually good. Okay, we're on the draw, so I think we can keep this hand. Matchmaking on Steam is worse. Oh no. I am sorry. I mean, actually, I should be much more sympathetic, as you have been very sympathetic to my plight over the last season, Nighthawk, so I should be more sympathetic, and I should say, that is too bad. That is minutes, that adds up to multiple minutes off your life over time. It really does. Well, there's a new card, and it's a good one, and it's a reason that Shock isn't as good as we all wish it were. And this card is a 1/3 First Strike Menace that makes a 2/1 Monkey. Alright, and we have a terrible draw. We have no plays for turns 1 and 2, so we are just too slow. But hopefully we can take over the game with these Harvesters, who should be very good if our opponent is playing red cards. Do we let that resolve before we kill his guy? I'm going to shock it first in case he hits a mountain, plays it, and then has a Titan Strength to stop my shock. But I definitely want to spend this turn killing something, and that is a great target. And okay, he did have a mountain and another play with a Bomat, so our opponent is on they're on fire. Also, they could have expedited their creature, which would have made my shock a lot better. Oh well, that's life. Red did get some improvements. I think that Harvester is going to be a real pain in its butt, though, as I think we'll see starting next turn. I think it's going to be a sad harvesting. Do I want to save this Thopter? Yeah, I might block a Bomat Courier, so we'll see what happens here. I really can't afford to lose my Engineer. Oh god. No, there's that. Our opponent's got the curve. We're going to have to make sure we keep a creature out of this attack and get a Harvester down. Oh, you're attacking with everything. You're not attacking with everything. You're attacking with some things. Okay. It is what it is. So, if we can recover from this start, we're doing great. I don't know that we can, but we will try. Our opponent did just use probably one of their bigger spells in Devils. Oh, I really didn't want to lose it, because I did want to be able to use it with the Harvester, but it is what it is. But let's get Harvester out there and start putting the lifelinks to him. We have a vehicle-heavy draw. We're going to need some more creature creators. Yep, you've got a shock. What you gonna do? I'll gain more life on this attack than I'll lose. Okay, he's going this route. If I block Bomat and I pay the energy, then he can sack it, but I think I'm going to do that anyway. And he's going to sack it, so I'm not going to gain the life right here. Alright, well, he basically had the perfect 2 cards to discard. I'm kind of jelly. We'll see if that was wrong and I should just let him keep his Bomat, but I feel like it continuing to accrue cards would be very bad for me. Okay, good, we drew a land. If we hadn't, we'd have had to tap our Harvester to play this card, but now we do not. That was a really bad move in my honest opinion. Well, thank you. You might you might not be wrong, especially considering what he discarded. I was hoping he wouldn't want to discard his hand, but there you go. So do I attack and get the lifelink? And nah, we'll hold back. Our opponent could have double burn, like Firecraft and what? Nothing. No, our opponent can't kill us from here. So we can start getting in with Harvester next turn when we play our other one. Call the full moon. Sure. Okay. Crew 1. We can double spell next turn. So I think I can take the 4, gain the life, and then we can take out the full moon. The other option is to block there. He can't kill it. Or we could just triple block. I do smell a pump spell though. This is pretty tough. Game 3, go to 10, plus 4, I don't die. Okay. Yeah. This could be wrong. Think it through. We'll go like this. Pause, please. Lifelink, please. Alright. You know, that was a window right there because of the first strike. He could have shocked me before my lifelink resolved, or he could have double shocked or bolted me. That's something to keep in mind in the future. There isn't, like, he would have had to have exactly double shock, so I still don't think it would have changed my play. Oh, okay, and he's got Firecraft. Ah, and he's Firecrafting that. Wow, good draw from our opponent. Pretty much as good as it could get. Let's see if we can recover. We need to leave our blue up. And we're going to show him the other Harvester, which is probably going to cause him to groan. And he needs to find a way to do 6 damage. I'm just going to leave everything back. There's probably some free attacks in there. I'm just being probably excessively cautious. Firebird, great. Alright, so I think the play is Harvester the Firebird, and Elder Deep Fiend can block the monkey. Elder Deep Fiend can block, Elder Deep Fiend can block the pirate along with a token, and then the other token can block the monkey. Oh no. Oh, we'll see if he still wants to attack now. That might be fine. We'll bluff him. That might be fine. It might just talk him into not attacking, which is perfectly... It's just great. The longer we get to sit on Deep Fiend, the better. It shuts down future haste creatures. And this just gives me free life. So yeah, he decides not to attack. I actually think that bluff was a better play than actually getting the Deep Fiend on the table. Alright. The fact that you just have, like, built-in life gain now to decks like this, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty ridiculous, really. Is it a bluff? No, it's not a bluff. It's, what would we call that? A pump fake, perhaps? Can we call that a pump fake? Is the world fine with that? That we pump faked the card? Yeah, Harvester is crew 1, which is pretty... It's sending a flex. It's a flex. I like that. Okay. Yeah, when you show them the card and then don't use it, but it is a really powerful card, and it dissuades them from doing something, I guess we'll call that a flex. I like it. Thought about 1 or 2 Harness Lightning's removal for the 4 shocks. You could do that. If you want to make that play, I will not be mad at you. I will not stop you. I will not tell you you're wrong. I will say... Oh, he's had enough. Okay. I will say that I want damage to go to the face in the matchups where your Thopter deck has to be the aggressor. Now, you can get more lifelink triggers for your Harvester, and you can get more different color mana for your Aether Hub, but I think that all plays a game that isn't as aggressive, and if I am in a situation with this deck, like, the thing with Thopters is I feel very confident against other aggressive decks that if I can buy time, I can get a lot of value out of my tokens and things of that nature, and I can kind of clog up the board and win. Whereas against decks that are control, I'm very worried that I can get enough damage through to finish the game. So that is that's where I'm gonna go with that, and that's why I like Shock and not the Harness Lightning. But I wouldn't be mad at you. You are certainly welcome to try it. So I don't know about you guys. I thought that we had a really... that was a really scary game. Our opponent's draw was really legit. And yeah, the Harvesters are the reason we won. There's almost no question about that. So, I think we like us some Harvesters. Anybody? And this is not like a... Thopters isn't really a mid-rangey deck, but man, did it really came in handy, you know what I mean? I think Harvesters go in aggressive decks too. It's just... they take over the aggressive matchups. Maybe that red deck is supposed to play Harvesters. I don't know. Some evasion with a crew 1 is pretty amazing. No red mana is bad. Okay. No. I mean, as tempting as that is, and then we get a slow hand. So we had 2 hands with our 1-drops, but not enough land to make them playable, and then we get a hand with no 1-drops. By the way, I think we have 11 1-drops and like 5 2-drops, or it's something crazy. We want to cast early Thopterists. It just... it's a little hard. The hands just so rarely seem to line up perfectly. And our opponent is right back to good old Sunblade Elf. If they have Plains Grasp of the Hieromancer, I might tilt, as that was a play that killed me yesterday. Never mind. No need to tilt. We drew the card. I hope they end up banning vehicles in Standard. That would be funny. They banned Smuggler's Copter. They'll never ban like a whole mechanic again. Like they just wrote banding out of the world. Banding, yeah. Hold on. There you go. Check out banding. Have fun with that. That is a mechanic that was in the very, very, very beginning of Magic, and they just have basically removed it. They don't even try to errata it anymore. Elves will never really die. We'll have to play some elves. I'm sure that deck, like I've put together my new kind of Revolt-ish elf deck, and it's probably not terrible. I don't know if it'll be great, but certainly terrible isn't the right word. Our opponent's playing the value game now with Jotty Offshoot. One card you overrated, one card you underrated. Oh, it's a question. Card I overrated. Let me think. One card that I overrated. I'm trying to think of like a card that I see now and I'm like, God, I would never play that card that at the time I was excited about. So something really obvious is I sort of half defended Ulrich of the Crowlin Horde, the legendary werewolf, as having some play, but I don't think I was ever on any kind of hype train associated with it, so I don't think that counts. Or I hope it doesn't. If it did, probably a scar on my record. Overrated. Maybe... Oh, you mentioned Aether Revolt. Well, I haven't gotten to play with all the cards I want to, but if we're just talking Aether Revolt, I haven't made the Bastion inventor work yet, and that's probably going to go down history as one of my larger overrates ever, because I was pretty excited about that deck, and so far it's been a hot mess of junk. Also, a servo schematic I included in a lot of my lists to get the 2 artifacts for 2 mana, but the card is basically a concession. Like, you play it and you're like, yeah, that's what I got, and the opponent's like, ah, you paid 2 mana for a 1/1 that's going to do nothing else ever. So I think servo schematic goes on my list. Underrated from Aether Revolt. Underrated. It's a good question. I hate to say Aethersphere Harvester because I was absolutely stoked by it, but maybe I didn't even know how good it is, and so far it's been so good. Maverick Thopterist, I don't think I underrated or overrated it. I was pretty like, yeah, that could be cool. It does good things. Oh, I have probably overrated Reverse Engineer, as it seems to require pretty much a whole turn off to do cool things. Our opponent's going off over here. They're going absolutely nuts this turn. Overrated Greenbelt Rampager. Well, I haven't tried to play with it yet, so I can't speak about it. The Black-Green Snake is overrated. I'm curious to find out about that, Nighthawk, because really, to be, like, I don't know if it's overrated, but I definitely think that people are making too many deck building concessions trying to make it work. If you're playing with bad cards to make that card work, you're probably doing it wrong. You probably need to play it around good cards that use tokens as well. That's, anyway, my hot take. And, well, I guess I can't kill Lily this turn, but I can diminish her ability to be useful. And hold up Deep Fiend is probably right, as a big Deep Fiend turn will flip this game right around. Our opponent had a really great turn, but we've got the air power. So we'll just keep her in check, and Deep Fiend might just wreck his day. Hopefully we draw a card we don't mind discarding, although right now that might be Pia because we don't have the red. We will discard this card. That will be fine. So, also, I am down, like, I'm kind of on Bounce's level with, you just can't run many tap lands anymore. So lands that come into play tapped, that seems to be a big change so far in the format. You just really can't afford it. It's too bad. It goes bad. So overrated, Narum Renegade. Haven't made that card do cool things yet, so I wouldn't argue with you. Tezzeret underrated, I would agree with that. Baral Chief of Compliance, underrated. Yeah, that card is awesome. That card is legit. It's a legit boss, so to speak. Away with the Scrounger. We'll get it back if we draw an Aether Hub. Our opponent's down to this. I guess we'll see if he wants to attack, because then we can tap down all his blockers if he attacks with even one thing. And yeah, I didn't think he powered up that Hissing Quagmire for his health. Alright, emerge right there. Tap your Planeswalker. That doesn't make sense. Oh, yeah, let's hate that it does that. Alright. I would say Vehicles deck didn't get much better. Well, I haven't played what I would call kind of the traditional vehicles with the right upgrades. And when I do, I think I'm going to smash a lot of things. So I'm going to try that out. I called my Izzet Burnless Barals to the Wall. That's awesome. That's A+ deck naming. I really didn't think he'd carry games as much as he does. He sure does. Like, you play him on turn 2. It's really hard to remove him, especially now that people are all up on their shocks. And then he sits out there as a 1/3, doing some blocking here and there if needed, getting a chip shot in there if needed, but letting you do things like play Telling Time for 1 mana, Read the Bones for 2 mana, Declaration in Stone for 1 mana, Anguish Unmaking for 2 mana. That it adds up quick, and it lets you get away with playing your tap lands. It's great. And of course, if you're doing what I do, it's all about the expertise, of course. All right, so thought about how I'm going to attack my opponent here. I'm going to make sure I get plenty of artifacts to the face. Deep Fiend is going to crush the Liliana, and I'm not very worried about counterattack. I'm just going to bring it all. You'd have to top deck like Gaia's Revenge to make me feel like I'm under any pressure. Cathartic Reunion, discarding 2 Fiery Tempers for 3 mana, I think is what you mean. 3 mana. Shock seems ill-advised right now. Yeah, there are a lot of cards with 3 toughness, but you also really, really, really want to burn the face and the Planeswalkers. So, is Shock ill-advised, or is it just more situational than we're used to it being? We're used to it being 1 mana, kill a 2-drop, which is always a great tempo play. But I think now it's got targets that are good, and it's got fail states. So it probably doesn't feel nearly as great as it used to. That's for sure. Opponent's gonna Bone Splinters a Deep Fiend. So our opponent top decked Elvish Visionary into Bone Splinters. May we all do that when we need to. But we're still cranking out the Thopters, and this seems... Yeah, Shock and Tempest is not the same as Shock and Aether Revolt. I think that's a great way to say it. I think that's a great way to put it. Alright, get out there. Our opponent doesn't have any good blocks. We'll turn all this sideways and read some comments. It sucked doing it, but I was on the draw versus a white weenie deck, and I turned 3'd a solid board state away using Yanni's expertise, playing off the second brawl off it. Well, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, because they're probably not expecting you to play it on turn 3. That's your Esper, you know. They don't expect to see that kind of board wipe for another turn, so they invest in the board, believing that they know what's up. Speaking of investing the board, believing that we know what's up, I'm kind of in board wipe territory, but if I put out this Copter instead of a Chief or a Thopter Engineer, then I'll still get triggers on upkeep if my opponent draws a Languish or Expertise. And then I think we still have lethal with the Engineer Chief. In fact, I'm sure we do, even if he does draw perfect. So down goes... I guess that's like an old school black-green control, not really an elf tribal. Pro tip from above beyond: don't cast Radiant Flames off an Expertise. That's a great pro tip. You paid no mana to cast it, therefore with no colors of mana paid, it does 0 damage. So that is a pro tip and a half right there. All right, Thopter's still rolling. Turns out Smuggler's Copters and decks that play them efficiently are still pretty darn good. That's, of course, obvious. So if you're going to control, you have to have a removal suite that cares about Smuggler Copter getting destroyed. There are more ways to do it. Fatal Push, of course, is a big one. Blessed Alliance is still a pretty important card. The life gain is a big deal. But Reclamation Sage and the occasional Fragmentize are also not terrible. All creatures get -3/-3, and you discard a card. Doesn't sound as good. Nope. Opponents on the play. We're going to have some options. If we draw a land, this hand is good, so I'll keep it. Opponent goes to 6. They've got their Liliana sleeves on in their first turn planes. I find that kind of strange. So, I guess they're... Well, that determines it. I was debating about Bomat or not, but if we play Inventor's Apprentice turn 1, we can go Bomat Apprentice on turn 2 and get one of those starts. Yeah, the matchmaking isn't quite... You know, that part isn't fixed, but above, you gotta be if what they meant was that they're gonna remove all the like crashes and freeze ups we had, then we have to be grateful for that, I suppose. I mean, you don't have to be, but I'm gonna practice being grateful. It makes me feel like a better person. There's also, yeah, like they said, I think it's gonna be rare to find folks like myself who are already at rank 40. You have to be pretty darn dedicated. Controversial one now. Harvester over Heart of Kiran. Yeah, I would, I'd give the nod to the Harvester. And in that way, perhaps Heart of Kiran is an overrated card, right? Maybe it is. What do you guys think? Heart of Kiran, overrated? Get in on this. Get in on this. What do you think? If you're watching this later or on YouTube, put it in the comments. Woo! Win! That was easy. I don't even know what deck that was. I can't even make notes. Crew 3 is a lot. I find that when I'm using several Crew 3s, like Cultivator Caravan, that you do have to build around it. You don't want to play like Selfless Spirits, cards like that you normally would. You'd rather play more things that can crew when you need it to. Okay. The other thing about Harvester and Copter is they can crew a Heart of Kiran. You can tap your 1 mana dork, crew the Smuggler's Copter or Aethersphere Harvester, and then crew the Heart of Kiran. But that's not really the way you want to do it. It's still really nutty, and I think Hawk is right, but it is harder. It makes you work a lot harder. It makes you work plenty hard. In fact, I think I've only attacked with my Heart of Kiran like 2 or 3 times, and I don't think we've even drawn it in these games. So, still have to put it to the test. And when you have an active Smuggler's Copter and not a lot of things to crew it, like, you probably just want to discard your Heart of Kiran to your Smuggler's Copter, which isn't a very, it's not a big, testament to its power. How about this card? From actual play, not from opinions, from actual play. Is this overrated or is it underrated? This one's a pretty controversial one. Our opponent keeps a no-lander. Well, that's what you get when you get rank 1'd. you get the no-lander. I kind of feel like I should play this for 0, just to give them hope. You overrate it. Oh, getting personal. Alright, well, it is what it is. I certainly want to play with it, and I certainly try to find any excuse I can to get it into a deck. Because I do want to see if it's good. Combat damage, okay. And our opponent has conceded. Alrighty. X-Leaf game. But Ballista has been fantastic for me, capital F, but it hasn't done better or worse than I thought it would. While others, Bounce says Ballista hasn't remotely been a threat whenever I see it, so played against you. So great, Nighthawk says so great in Kratz. Triggered an Origins Lily flip by casting it for 0. It was awesome. You can also trigger your Archangel Avacyn flip. Yeah. Why aren't my games this quick? It's probably because I don't need the gold. Anybody who needs the gold will never have a quick game like that. You don't want Heart of Kiran in Thopters. In Pilots works great, though, even without walkers on the board. Well, we'll see. Still haven't drawn it. I feel like getting 3 things to pile into a Heart of Kiran and fly over the top. Like my Whirler Rogue, maybe, and a Bomat Courier. Sounds like a good idea, but you don't agree. You might turn out to be right. I have to actually draw the darn card. All the Revolt triggers are flipped with a 0 mana Ballista. Yeah, there's a lot of little synergies with the card. I think that's part of what's exciting about it. One thing I do like about it is that any deck has a way without summoning sickness to immediately put a Planeswalker off ultimate. I mean, that feeling of there's nothing I could draw to keep that Planeswalker from ultimating when you're playing a fair creature deck is a very sad feeling. I'm telling you, and you can totally overcome it with the Ballista. I want to say Ballista, but I want to say Batista every time, so I'm just going to call it Ballista. Plenty of 3-power creatures and red-white vroom vroom to crew it. I think so too. This poor rank 3. Well, you never know. He could have been a rank 40 last season on his way up. Bounce is negative on all the things we just mentioned, saying it reads discard a card and something relevant happens. Well, there are a lot of cards in Magic that say discard a card and something relevant happens, and they turn out to be pretty good cards. I mean, imagine if Archangel Avacyn just said discard a card to trigger it for the flip. It'd be even more broke than it arguably is. Imagine if all the Revolt cards just said discard a card and you could trigger them. That would make them twice as effective. So options are great. We gotta love options. We need one more artifact for our Thopterist to do the thing. Our opponent looks like they're gonna play the blue-green energy deck. How about the cards that discard for mana, like Simian Spirit Guide? I think there's an Elvish Spirit Guide. I played that card back in the day. Oh, we're not going to attack now with our little Bomat. He has run into a brick wall. I'm going to... Oops. And we win again. Oh my goodness. I guess he doesn't like how long I'm taking. Or he's listening to me. I had the party on, but I've been kicked out of my own parties a lot lately by Xbox, and I forget to mute. Maybe you guys can help remind me to mute my opponents when I go in, because maybe they're hearing me talking and not enjoying it. I know it would be a little tilting for me if I was trying to play a game of Magic and my opponent kept talking to somebody else. Be a little tilting. Abzan's Sigil of the Empty Throne equal love. Well, somebody found an Origins card that they like. So, I guess Bohemian, then the question is, what makes it better now, or is this a new love that has been in front of you the whole time? Can't you have it muted by default? I can have my Connect mic muted by default. If I can have Duels opponents muted by default, please tell me how. Yeah, we gotta keep that. You'd think it's a thing they'd implement day one. You said implement, and I started thinking of the implement cards, and I just got all off track in my head trying to figure out what you were talking about. But it's obvious, Gaz, that you were just talking about the muting. What would you guys say is the most improved card because of Aether Revolt? Well, if you want to play Revolt cards, I would hand it to Evolving Wilds. But I think that card has gotten worse, actually, in several other places, so I don't think we can call it Evolving Wilds for reals, just in Revolt. Obviously, there are a lot of cards in Aether Revolt that make specific cards better. Gearhulk and a Winding Constrictor is like 10x what it used to be. Can you do it in sound settings, perhaps? Well, I don't know if you're telling me what you know, or if you're telling me what you hope is there. Let's see. Nope, can't do it. Unbridled Growth, I think, is junk. Is it possible to have a 5-color deck? It sure is. Wizards doesn't recommend it. If you've clicked on your, if you've clicked on the deck builder. All right, you're gonna attack with that Lone Rider? No, he's not. Opponent's holding it back. Scared of that Bomat. Bomat. All right, I'll go over the top. I guess it's, yeah, you're saying it's OP because of the glitch. I don't know. That's debatable about whether or not you take glitches into account when talking about cards like that. Mix it with From Beyond, Call for Unity. Okay, we're talking about Sigil of the Empty Throne. Mix it with From Beyond. That's not new. Call for Unity. That's another 5 mana enchantment. Whew. Conviction. Okay. New white-black enchantment. Stockpile. Why not? Militia Captain. Madness. Do you have a Google Doc of all your decks? Nope, I don't have that right now, guys. I used to do that back in the day, but keeping it all in track and in line with what people wanted me to do, or hoped I would continuously update, turned out to be more work than I wanted to put in, just being honest. So I think I want to go this way. I think this gets the most done, and I think we're going to hold off Deep Fiendish, but holding up Shock is very similar. The best enchantment, Thopterist, arguably. Sigil deck needs all the Abzan vessels. Ooh. Saucy. You guys, get in over the top. Go ahead, blessed ally them. And fire it up, takes some damage, and we pass the turn. Their 2 mana did nothing for their turn. That's sad. That's sad. I hate that feeling. But there's the land they need. There it is. And here comes an Always Watching. So I'm going to take this opportunity to shock this card before it gets out of range. The lifelink could be a long-term problem, taking away our ability to race. Not to mention his Lonely Lieutenant now is in a ton of trouble. Bohemian, want to 1v1 soon so I can show it off? Yeah, we can do that. We can do that after this game. Alright, I think we'll just put the pedal to the metal here. Attack you with all that. How you doing? See, I have an Anthem effect too. It's called Chief of the Foundry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15 damage if he doesn't block. $15 damage if he don't block it. Bohemian, if you have a preference of what you play against, either super serious or super casual, or like, you know, some people like to play against the serious decks like this in vehicles because they want to know if their deck is good, and some people are like, just play something cool, and I'll be like, okay, I'll go find something that I call a little more fun. So tell me, you are very, very welcome to tell me what you want me to play. I may just as well hold this back. It doesn't matter. How am I finding Deep Fiend in Thopters? I think it's amazing. I think that playing Deep Fiend for 2 blue off the Thopter Maverick thing is awesome. It's very rare that I cast Deep Fiend and lose. And it can pull you out games that looked really hard. Like earlier today, I was playing from behind. I got turn 3 Thalia'd on the draw. And that, of course, is really hard for Thopters if you can't shock their Thalia. And I didn't draw one. So, I didn't draw a shock. So everything was coming into play tapped. I was just behind on board the whole game. But I was getting my stuff on the board. Aethersphere Harvester kept me alive, because that card's amazing. And then after I got a little bit of a board, I Elder Deep Fiended, I tapped all his guys, and I swung for 18 in one punch. So it was great.